Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host, Keith Glasser. Keith, what's up, man?
Nothing. How are you?
Good. We got an important topic. A bunch of different coaches that we've talked to have brought this up and figured it was worth a few minutes to discuss, but the importance of watching college baseball, either in person, ESPN Plus, streaming, legally, illegally, any way you can get it done. It's a significant value add to your education process as somebody who's going through the recruiting process. So hit us on a couple good points on why this is important.
I think the first and foremost, it sets the floor for what college baseball looks like, right? Like, almost every conference at the Division I level is on ESPN Plus. The vast majority of Division II and Division III schools are streaming games. I would venture a guess to say, and I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine that there's a bunch of JUCO and NAIA programs out there that do the same thing. So you can get on the interwebs, or especially if you're a Northeast New England kid, like there's a lot of drivable Division I, II, III JUCO programs that you can go watch in person and get eyes on and see live what it actually is and what it looks like to be a college baseball player. You can see the speed of the game. You can see what the pitchers look like. You can see the physicality of what the position guys look like, and the pitchers for that matter. But you can see, what they do defensively, and the how fast the game is played at the college level, whether it's if it's at an RPI or it's at Northeastern or it's at a St. Rose in the NE10, like there's really good baseball being played in the NE10. If you're in the Pennsylvania area, like you're in the Philly area, like my goodness, you can get out and watch a lot of really, really good baseball being played, up and down, especially on the East Coast. So, being able to kind of to set your frame of reference for what it takes to play at every single level. And, we've talked about before, there's levels within the levels, right? Like what it takes to play at Virginia, what it takes to play at a Marist, what it takes to play at a Millersville, what it is at a St. Rose and, an RPI and a Rochester and, you name it, like there's levels within all of those. So like being able to kind of try to catch as many games as you can, and see what it takes to kind of play at those levels can really, get you to the point, like at least for if you can be introspective enough to see, do I fit at this level? If I don't, what do I have to do in order to get to this level? It might not be attainable, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're not a college baseball player. It just means you don't necessarily fit at in Arkansas and an LSU. You might fit at a Marist and a Fairfield or a UMass Lowell and a U Albany, something like that. But getting out and seeing them is huge in the recruiting process for you to be able to kind of figure out, where do I fit? What does it look like at this level? And what are those players doing at that level that I either need to get to, or, hey, I do that. I think I can fit. And it can really guide your process in how to narrow down your list of schools where you can be realistic, where you're going to fit from an athletic standpoint. And then obviously we got to talk about the academics on the back end, but for the argument of our podcast, like you can sit in there and really get a feel for what it is athletically, where you can fit by actually watching games in person, online, or from your couch.
Yeah, the big thing for me, it's super important because you get that, you start to get a look at what it takes to play at that level, right? Like most kids usually only watch the big leagues, and like you're watching the best in the world play an incredibly hard sport, right? But the first step is let's get to play in college, and I think there's often a big time gap when it comes to understanding, one, how good you need to be able to play at any level, but then understanding the difference in levels and what it takes to play at the absolute highest level, right? We had Coach Soleno and Coach Hobbs on recently from Arkansas and Wake Forest. Like, you're talking top of the freaking food chain. Like, it is they're Division I programs, but the player that plays at Wake Forest and plays at Arkansas isn't the same player that plays at Marist, right? It's just that simple, but you have to understand it. And the easiest way to understand it is to experience it or see it, right? And if you're a parent or you're a player and you live in a relatively metropolitan area, right? If you're in Albany, right, like where you grew up, like you've got Division I, II, III, and junior college all within an hour and a half, and you can see all different levels of college baseball.
I mean, you have multiple.
Yeah, at every level.
I mean, you just in Albany alone, you have UAlbany, Siena, you have St. Rose, which is Division II, you have RPI Union, Skidmore, Sage, which is all Division III, Hudson Valley right there, Schenectady Community College, Adirondack. I mean, you can get into a lot, and then that's not even like, especially if you're on the eastern side of New York, like you can get into Winnick and Amherst, UMass.
Williams. I mean, it's not that far. Like I'm in the.
You can see a lot of really good. Like you can go watch Tufts and Williams play at Williams, or Middlebury and Williams, and you can go see Trinity. Trinity's an hour and a half away.
Yeah,
like, you can go catch Trinity Tufts. Like it's a really good baseball game that you're going to watch.
It's not a big trip.
2 hours.
It's not a huge ask either. Like, yeah, I'm in the DC area. Like, I can go watch George Mason regional team. I can go watch GW. I can go watch Georgetown. Maryland's only an hour, so you can go watch a top 25 team. You know, you drive a little bit farther in Maryland, you get up into Baltimore, and you can start to look at Johns Hopkins, top Division III program in the country. You can go watch UMBC. You got Catholic in DC, top of the food chain Division III program. You got Mary Washington. You got Marymount, 2 other really good Division III programs. Like, you have this at your fingertips, and you have the ability to go see this. Like, don't even get into Boston. Like, I mean, you can see everything from BC to Suffolk Community College in Boston. Like, you could see an incredible array of schools. But if you're in one of these metropolitan areas, if you're in the Philly area, or if you're listening, you're down in Atlanta, like, you can see a wide spectrum of baseball. Take a Sunday and go watch a Sunday 1:00 start. Like, if you're in the DC area, look up Georgetown's schedule, look up Maryland's schedule. If you're not doing anything that's that important on a Sunday, you want to find out what it looks like to see Rutgers and Maryland play. You want to see 2 top 25 programs. You want to see what it takes to play at that level because you think that's how good you are. Go watch Christian Campola throw against Maryland's #1 guy on a Friday night at 7 p.m. And then really take a step back and go, am I good enough to play at that level? And then on Sunday, go watch Catholic run out their #3 guy who's going to be 86 to 89 and ask yourself, am I good enough to play for them? And if you're close enough in the recruiting process where you're asking that question, that's a piece of information you're used to narrow your focus. If you're younger, you start to see what it takes to be there. So now you got something to shoot for, right? Now you know if you're a freshman in high school and you just went and watched Maryland throw on a Friday night against Michigan, whoever they're playing, or you went and watched Georgetown play UConn, you got a pretty good idea what it takes to pitch at a really high level of Division I baseball. If you're not that guy now you know what that guy looks like. You know how he acts. You know how he prepares for a start. It's all really important information, and it's at your fingertips. And if you can't do it in person, ESPN Plus. And there's dozens of games all over the country on every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You'll catch some Tuesday midweeks. Like, the wide array of games you can catch is, there's no reason to not. And if you're not doing that as a part of your process, you're selling yourself short because it's a piece of information that is easily accessible now. 10 years ago, this wasn't an easy thing to come across. Nope. But it's super easy now. And
the other thing too, and I think it's important that we touch on it, is that you want to keep it in the context of what you're watching and where you're currently at, right? Like, if you're a 15-year-old kid going and watching Maryland Rutgers, like, keep in mind that you're watching 19 to 22, 23-year-old kids play high-level college baseball. Like, you're still 3 to 4 years away from even setting foot on that field, but what does it look like? And do you think you could fit into there in 3 or 4 years. And it's hard to do, right? But it's, you might be a 82 to 84 mile, or 80 to 83 mile an hour arm right now. That doesn't mean that you're not capable of getting to that level eventually. Like, I can tell you, and you can, and everyone, you've heard people on this podcast, like, there's guys that were recruited. Rhett Lauer, Billy was on here talking about Rhett Lauer. Like, he was 82 to 84 coming out of high school. And that dude was the best pitcher in college baseball for he was back-to-back ACC pitcher of the year. That doesn't necessarily mean that, you want to be able to kind of figure out if that's where you can fit, but it's also, being able to have conversations with yourself and people that you trust to say, like, hey, like, yeah, that's a realistic possibility if you can do these couple things. And as you progress and develop, that's a reality that's on the table. And I think that's important to say too. Like, you might be 15 and go watch LSU play and be like, I don't know if I could fit there. Like, maybe you don't, but you also got to keep in mind you're 4 or 5 years away from even setting foot on that field. And that's an important piece too, to kind of keep in the back of your mind.
Oh, for sure. And I think if you are that kid and you go to one of those games and you're in awe of how good they are, use that as a benchmark for, like, hey, well, like, start to ask yourself, well, that's where I really want to play. Like, what can I do to put myself in a situation to give myself the best chance to do it? You may not make it. A small percentage of kids end up playing at that level, and that's okay. But if you see it and you can visualize, hey, that's what a dude looks like at that level, and I want to get as close to that as possible, well, now you start to put together a plan that's going to give yourself a chance to get there. The one last thing I'd say about this is when you go and you watch these games or you watch them on television, don't just lock in on velocity. Don't just lock in on how far a ball gets hit. Look at how these guys play the game, right? Look at the nuance of it. Pitchers being able to hold runners, being able to throw strikes into different quadrants of the zone, being able to spin breaking balls, being able to cross count guys with a guy in scoring position. Like, look at the game, because college baseball is not high school baseball. It's not showcase baseball. It is a game that you play to win. And you need to understand that people are doing things for very specific reasons. Pitchers are getting thrown in certain counts for very specific reasons. You're going to have guys in action counts that are going to run. You're going to see guys bunt. You're going to see pitchers back up bases. Like, look at the finer points of the game. Because the quicker you can start to see the game through that lens, especially if you're able to do it in person and you can see how these guys prepare themselves, the better suited you're going to be when you get to campus to take on the task of being a college athlete and understanding the detail that is required for you to even get on the field. So, pay attention to more than just how hard a guy's throwing. Pay attention to more than just how fast a guy runs. Like, look at how the game is being played, and you'll educate yourself on that portion of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, we talk about going and watching or sitting down on your couch or your whatever thing you're going to sit down on and watch, is to, like, legitimately watch. Put your phone down, put your computer down, whatever, and legitimately watch the game and how it's being played. Because that's going to tell you so much more when you can lock in on that stuff, because it is, first and foremost, it's a completely different game, and we've touched on that a lot. And I think if you're listening to this at this point in time, like, you've been able to kind of garner that through a lot of the conversations we've had with coaches, that, like, there's so much more that goes into playing baseball at the college level than it is at high school. And it's not to say that, high school baseball is not good. It's just like, you're now playing against the top, just for argument's sake, 10% in the country. So you're playing against really good players. So that margin of error has now shrunk down considerably when you get to that level. So, like, being able to legitimately watch and pay attention to what's going on, and, watching the base runners, and, what jumps the guys get in the outfield. And, when you see outfielders shifting in counts and infielders moving in specific counts where, they know what pitch is being thrown. So they're moving defensively to kind of combat where that ball might be hit. It's little things like that, and outfield base runners checking outfield depth and outfield positioning so that they know when a ball's hit, I can go first and third on this, or I'm going to score, whatever it might be. Like, it's little things like that where, you want to pay attention to kind of see like what is actually being, how it's being played at that level. Because obviously it's being taught, so you're going to learn that eventually, but how that game is being played there so that you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like, at each level that you're going to watch.
Hell yeah, brother. Spot on. Anything else you'd like to add on this wonderful topic?
No, just get out there and watch. Like, it's a phenomenal game. I mean, I know you do it and I do the same thing. Like, the amount of college baseball I watch in the spring is
I watch more of that than I do.
Way more than I watch professional baseball in the summer. Spring, I lock in obviously towards the end of the year in playoffs with the pro ball, but I'm locked in from mid-February through May, June on college baseball because it's always on. ESPN Plus is my best friend. I just sit there and flip on games and watch as much as I possibly can.
Absolutely. We have some favorites. We won't call them out, but yeah. Moral of the story is find time to go watch college baseball. If you can't do it in person, throw it on ESPN Plus and learn from it. Use it as a tool. Use it as a piece of information that can help you in the recruiting process. Good to go?
Good to go.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening this week. EMD Baseball on Twitter and Instagram. Catch us on the interwebs, emdbaseball.com. You want to find out more about how me and Keith use our college coaching experience to help families. Until next week, thanks, everybody.